Today on the Daily Scoop podcast from the Scoop News Group, President Trump threatens an executive order on elections claiming states must obey. And a federal watchdog says OMB must prioritize an IT spending framework or scrap it. It's Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. Welcome to the Daily Scoop podcast, where you'll hear the latest news and trends facing government leaders. I'm the host of the Daily Scoop podcast, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for joining me. Now let's get into the day's top headlines. In a sweeping announcement about a forthcoming executive order, President Donald Trump argued Monday that states are ultimately subservient to the White House when it comes to setting election policy. Trump wrote in a post on his Truth Social platform that states are, quote, merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them for the good of our country to do. Trump also claimed the executive order would end mail-in voting, falsely claiming that other countries stopped the practice due to fraud, as well as, quote, very expensive and seriously controversial voting machines. It's not clear which voting machines Trump was referencing. The president's allies and friendly media outlets like Fox News and Newsmax were successfully sued by Smartmatic and Dominion for billions of dollars after the 2020 election for falsely claiming that their voting machines were rigged to elect Democratic President Joe Biden. Either way, Trump has lost dozens of lawsuits attempting to prove fraud, and reportedly nearly signed an executive order at the end of his last term ordering the Department of Defense to seize voting machines, purportedly to examine them for fraud. A previous executive order from Trump this year purporting to compel the Bipartisan Election Assistance Commission to alter voter registration request forms to include a proof of citizenship section and deny forms to states or voters who don't provide the information was struck down by a judge as unconstitutional in April. The judge in the ruling remarked that, quote, no statutory delegation of authority to the executive branch permits the president to short-circuit Congress's deliberative process, unquote, on regulating elections via executive order. The Constitution of the United States doesn't say much about the role of the executive branch in elections. States are mentioned prominently as the primary administrators, while Congress is empowered to make regulations. The president, however, isn't mentioned at all. In other news, a federal watchdog is urging the Office of Management and Budget to prioritize the government-wide adoption of a federal IT spending framework, or end the efforts after finding the multi-year initiative has stalled. In a report made public Monday, the Government Accountability Office recommended that the OMB director direct the federal chief information officer to either terminate the agency's push for government-wide adoption of the Technology Business Management Framework or deem it an administration priority. Should it be made a priority, the GAO also suggested OMB quickly implement the watchdog's previous recommendations and take immediate action to integrate the framework across the government fully. The Technology Business Management Framework, also called TBM, is a taxonomy aimed at helping federal agencies and IT leaders track and manage spending on technology products and services. The TBM Council, a nonprofit organization, created the framework. The TBM framework can be used by leaders to understand trade-offs between specific IT investment decisions and use those insights to accelerate tech-related initiatives, the GAO explained in its report. It can also be used to detect spending on shadow IT, referring to tech purchased without the knowledge of an agency's CIO. In 2017, OMB announced plans to improve insights into IT spending by pushing for a government-wide adoption of TBM. In the 2017 guidance, OMB detailed plans to require agencies to use the TBM framework in annual budget requests to increase transparency, according to the GAO. OMB designated itself and the General Services Administration as the agencies overseeing the initiative. As part of the investigation into the TBM framework, GAO issued 6 recommendations to OMB and 1 to GSA. The watchdog said OMB's failure to expand requirements was the most concerning. For more news at the intersection of the federal government and technology, make sure to visit fedscoop.com. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Daily Scoop podcast, available on all podcast platforms. If you've already rated the podcast on your platform of choice, thanks so much. High ratings and good reviews of the show help more people to find it. The Daily Scoop podcast is a production of the Scoop News Group in Washington, D.C. Adam Butler and Carlin Fisher help put the show together, and the entire Scoop News Group team contributes. We'll be back tomorrow with more top headlines. Until then, I'm your host, as always, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for listening.